What's up? Welcome to Wine School. I'm Mike. Eric's not with us today because we are on location in Dundee Hills AVA, Oregon at the White Rose Estate. We're about to drink some kick-ass Pinot Noir, so really excited, looking forward to this episode. Special guest today, we've got Ann, thanks Ann, and Gavin from White Rose Estate.
Hi.
And so Gavin, tell us a little bit about the winery, what you guys do here. And
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're right smack dab in the heart of the Dundee Hills in Oregon's Willamette Valley, and the Dundee Hills is where a lot of the first pioneers started growing grapes in Oregon back in the late 60s and early 70s. The story behind our winery is actually a gentleman from Southern California who had always dreamed about making Pinot Noir and owning a vineyard in Oregon, stumbled upon this property in 2000. And at that time there was just an existing vineyard here, actually the one that's directly behind us.
this one right here?
Yep. And the vines dated back to the late 70s, so it was one of the early vineyards that were planted.
Awesome.
And it was called White Rose Vineyard. The guy's name's Greg Sanders, and he was lost and literally knocked on someone's door. The conversation, one thing led to another, and
I can buy your winery?
offering to buy the vineyard on the spot, and it worked out perfect because the couple was getting older and they were kind of looking for an exit strategy. So the timing was great. And,
awesome.
And he ended up buying. He didn't realize at the time, but he ended up buying a really special vineyard with a lot of potential. A small.
How big is it?
It's 10 acres total. So there's about eight acres under vine from it's, now 35 plus years old. And so Greg continued to sell fruit because that's what the previous owners had done. They didn't make their own wine; they just sold grapes. They were farmers, and then started kind of dabbling and making a little bit of his own wine in 2001. And that's really when it all started. And since then, we've slowly grown. Today, we produce about 3,500 cases of wine a year. We've added an existing vineyard that's just to our north. It's called Guillen Vineyard. So now we have about 14 acres of estate vineyards right here.
Okay.
And we're
that's the Guillen Family Wines.
Guillen Family Wines is our winemaker's personal label. It actually doesn't even come from Guillen Vineyard. It comes from the next vineyard over, which is Vista Hills.
And one of the things that always fascinates me about this is the height of these vines. They're crazy tall.
Yeah, we probably have the tallest trellis in Oregon, or one of the tallest trellises I've ever seen. We do it for a couple reasons. One is we're at about just under 900 feet, which is really high for Oregon. So we're kind of right on that top elevation of where you can consistently ripen grapes every vintage. And we also really have a unique vineyard because of its age. Spacing back then, it's spread out really, the rows are really wide. So we have 10-foot rows where today you'd be more common to find 6, maybe 7.
Sure.
So what we try and do with our kind of viticulture philosophy is we try and actually delay bud break and fruit set early on, which helps us avoid late spring frosts, which can be really detrimental to crop. And we do that by kind of having the plant focus more on vegetative growth early in the year. And so we let it keep growing that canopy where other people would typically have already hedged. And what that does is it delays fruit development, which can be good if we get a late frost. But on the other side of that, since we're delaying that, we have to kind of make up for that.
Picking late.
And then we end up picking late, but we've got this huge canopy, which acts as a huge photosynthetic curtain, and it's just churning and creating energy late in the year when other vineyards are starting to turn color and shut down. So it stays healthy and active and continues to work for the fruit much later. So we end up with longer hang time. We end up picking oftentimes around Halloween, which is a lot later than a lot of our neighbors. So it's worked. It's something we just experimented with early on in Greg's after he purchased the vineyard, but it's led to really great gains in quality. So
it's really neat to look at too.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
The last time I was here, everything was in bloom. And it was I kind of drove up the hill. I'm like, wow, look at this place. It's unbelievable.
It's tall. I mean, it's 10, 12 feet tall when it's at the end of the year. But yeah, in addition to our 2 vineyards, we work with a handful of other grape vineyards throughout the Willamette Valley.
And it's sourcing grapes, basically.
Yeah, sourcing grapes, and it's all Pinot Noir. So we might do a dozen different Pinots, just depending on the year and how many other sources we have. But we typically do, our flagship wine comes from White Rose Vineyard and Key and Vineyard, our two estates. Those are our two flagship wines.
Okay.
Then we do 2 or 3 blends each year. We kind of do a broad Willamette Valley blend.
Okay.
We do a winemaker's cuvee, which essentially is a barrel selection of some of the best barrels from that vintage.
Okay.
And then we do a wine called the Neoclassical Objective, which is kind of a mouthful, but it really speaks to our kind of philosophy and style of winemaking, which is really a modern adaptation of whole kind of traditional whole cluster winemaking techniques.
Is it everything 100% whole cluster?
Everything that we are tasting today is, not everything we produce is. Everything we're producing these days is typically 80 to 100% with a few exceptions.
Okay, and all French oak or American oak?
We use all French oak, and we're pretty light-handed. We only use about 10 to 12% new oak for any given wine.
Thank you for that,
yeah.
by the way.
Oak's one. And in all honesty, we'd probably go lower, but there's just the, we have to, we love the first and second use barrels, and in order to get first and second use barrels, you have to have old ones. So we use just enough to kind of keep a nice flow of barrels coming through the wine.
Yeah, the over oak stuff just drives me crazy, and I think that's one of the things I really like about this wine. And we talked about this earlier. I'm a huge fan of this winery, and I'm real excited to drink what we've got going on today. So you want to tell us a little bit about what we're drinking? So we got the cuvee and the
we'll start actually with the Leah's Vineyard.
Okay. And can we see that from where we're at right now?
We can't see that from where we're at. It would be kind of just over the hill to the north. It's actually about probably 10 to 12 miles away, and it's in the Chehalem Mountains, which is the sub-AVA just north of the Dundee Hills. But it's a terrific vineyard. They started planting it in the late 80s and continued to plant it into the early 2000s. The block we work with is from the late 90s. It's all Dijon 115 clone, fermented 100% whole cluster, and we've leased the same 2 acres now from this particular vineyard since 2009. It tends to produce really classy, elegant wines. It's kind of become a favorite amongst a lot of our team here at White Rose.
I feel some of that is like, which kid do you like the best, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're really pretty fortunate to work with a number of vineyards, so it's kind of like what's in your glass at the moment in terms of which one's your favorite.
Right, yeah, or what time of day it is, or what's on the plate in front of you. The color on this is beautiful. Oh, yeah. This is just delightful. I get a lot of strawberry, raspberry on this. Oh wow,
I got a little chocolate. Do you taste that?
Chocolate? I didn't get the chocolate, but now that you say that, maybe a little dark chocolate.
You can definitely get some darker tones, some darker secondary characteristics. I think it's common for the site.
So one of the things I know that this soil has that is it the volcanic soil?
Yeah.
The Red Hills. So is this also?
Yes. So the Dundee Hills is really known for the red volcanic soil. It's called Jory, and it's
Jory, like with a J.
Yeah, Jory, Jory, and it's found throughout the Willamette Valley. But it's the unique thing about the Dundee Hills is once you get above 250 feet off the valley floor, then it's all Jory soil. In some of the other AVAs, you'll find pockets of Jory soil, and Leah's Vineyard happens to have pockets within it. So the section of vineyard we work with is actually on Jory soil. But the entire vineyard and the entire Chehalem Mountains has other kind of subsets of different volcanic soils, and even some loams and other soil categories. So.
This is delightful. I feel bad dumping it.
Drink mine.
So let's, should we move on to the second one?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the second wine then is the Neoclassical Objective 2012. And this is kind of a new blend that we started. This was just the second vintage.
Oh, okay.
And kind of the story behind this is, kind of what's put us on the map, and what put us on the map early on were a lot of the wines that we were producing that were 100% whole cluster, because you just don't see a lot of 100% whole cluster wines. And when we started experimenting with it back in 2004, we were doing it on a really small scale, and since those wines became some of the press, they got some good accolades and whatnot kind of became known locally, and oh, those are the guys that do the whole cluster. And while that's a really big part of what we do, it's definitely not comprehensive to our kind of approach to winemaking. So because of that, we started to use the term neoclassical, which to us has a little bit broader meaning that encompasses the kind of historical orientation of doing 100% whole cluster fermentations, but also focusing on vineyard site selection, which is really important for us. We try and work with cooler vineyards.
So is this a single vineyard as well?
This is a blend of older vineyards, so it's got White Rose, older sections of Vista Hills, which are our neighbors to the north. A vineyard called Murto, which is just a little bit further. It's still here in the Dundee Hills, but it's an older vineyard site. And those are the three main vineyards in this blend. So what they have in common is they all, higher, cooler sites, which really produce kind of vibrant, fresh wines with that really classic character. And it's all fermented 100% whole cluster.
Yeah, this is really nice. And a lot more. I get a lot more kind of earthy components on this than on the last one. I feel like the last one was a little more fruit driven. This feels like a little more earth driven.
Yeah.
I get like a mushroom, like a figgy mushroom almost on it.
Yeah.
But backed up with some nice bright red fruit in the back.
Yeah, this is nice.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is really nice. Very elegant.
Very elegant.
Not overpowering. What's the ABV on this?
I think that's around 13.6.
13.6. Wow.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed it's that high. It doesn't have any heat to it. Really
It seems really balanced, and I think in 2012 was a year that was slightly warmer than average, but it was by no means a hot year. So for the most part, the fruit came in really in incredible shape, just gorgeous. The sugar levels were right on par. We didn't have to do a lot of adjusting or a lot of concerning about, is it going to come in with their alcohol? Is going to be too high? Are they going to be too low? It was a pretty special year in that regard.
I feel this could lay down for quite a bit. It's maybe not. I don't know that I would drink this today. I'm trying to hold on to this for a little bit.
Yeah, I think all these wines, and especially in a year like 2012, have the ability to age and continue to evolve, and that's kind of where we go. Though we often use the analogy of which is your favorite kid. Right now it just depends on who you ask. Right now it's really good. 3 years from now it's probably going to be really good.
That's
3 years
true.
from now, it's just going to take on different characteristics, and that's
right now. This is my favorite kid.
Yeah,
but
well, we haven't got to the last one. Yeah, I think these two are both a toss-up in terms of the quality of the vineyards that go into them and kind of what our thoughts are on them. It's just the next one will have, to me, a slightly more masculine edge, where this one's more on the kind of leans more toward the elegant side. But
I didn't dump the rest of this one. I went ahead and just finished that glass. That's
one's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Really nice.
It's weird, but the wines from here, they remind me of Burgundy, but there's just something extra about them. And I don't know if it's like a brightness of fruit or something that it's also in the glass, but it really is very unique. And it's.
You mean the Oregon Pinots?
Yeah, but from this area in particular.
Okay, got it.
Not just Oregon Pinot in general.
Got it.
So this is the cuvee. This is the blend.
This is the winemaker's cuvee. So this is a wine where our winemaker Jesus Guillen kind of goes through the cellar, and after we've put together the neoclassical and the White Rose vineyard, he kind of manages the barrels that are left and picks some of the ones that are his favorites. So there's some negotiation there, which ones are going to go in the neoclassical, which ones are going to go in the winemaker's cuvee. But once we get that squared away, this ends up typically being a really fantastic blend. And like I said, he gravitates towards some of the vineyards that tend to maybe have a bit more structure, a bit more power. So this wine tends to be just a beefier version of the last wine.
Yeah, and I'm getting that on the nose as well. This is a little more expressive. It just feels more powerful.
Yeah.
And I haven't got into the palate on it yet, but. Yeah, this is delightful as well.
Yeah, I see what you mean now.
Well, it's got a little more mouth.
I mean,
that's a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
And I always tell people when you're tasting lineup of our wine, since it's all Pinot Noir, everything's coming with about a 20-mile radius of the winery. We're handling the fruit essentially the same from point of harvest, until the time it goes in the bottle. If this whole Pinot Noir spectrum is this big, we live in an area about this big, so it can be a huge differences in an area this small, but it's not like we make wines on each end.
Right.
Well, and just looking at the terroir here, I mean, there's so many different aspects of the slopes. I mean, like you guys are facing, I guess, is this east?
Pretty much due east, yeah. So the vineyard kind of slopes down and is east-southeast oriented.
This one over here is obviously then totally south?
Almost totally south, yeah. The contours are really interesting.
So I would guess what you guys are making here is totally different than what they're getting out of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're a little higher too, right?
A little bit higher, yeah, completely. A little bit higher, and then not only do you have different aspects, you've got vine age, you've got different rootstocks, clonal selections, just numerous variables where, we work with 4 different sections of Vista Hills Vineyard, which is, immediately north of Guillen Vineyard, and they were all planted around the same time, and every block's different because of subtle differences in aspect, clone, 3-4 year vine age difference, all of those things really. It's really interesting. We do a lot of research here, and that's a series of wines that I didn't even talk about, but we have done elevation series, we've done clonal comparisons within the same vineyard.
Okay, cool.
This year we're doing a series where we're doing different levels of whole clusters, so we will actually do some 20% whole cluster and compare those to 80% whole clusters from the same vineyard. So it's all just trying to learn more about Pinot Noir. I mean, that's what our specialty is, and while we work with one varietal, it's I guarantee I could spend the rest of my lifetime and probably another trying to get down to the bottom of what really makes Pinot Noir so special.
Well, I big props for experimenting, right? Because some of that stuff is probably not going to work, and that's a financial impact, right? But at the end of the day, and some of this we might not know if it works for 10 years, right?
Absolutely.
So you're doing something that's contributing to the future of our enjoyment for years to come. So.
Well, thanks. I hope so. That's that's the goal, is for people like you guys and people out there to get the wines and enjoy it and find some sense of beauty in them, and hopefully kind of have a memorable experience with the bottle.
Well, it's a marvelous site. It's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
The wines are fantastic, and really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
That's White Rose Estate, guys. Check them out. WhiteRoseEstate.com.
WhiteRoseEstate.com, yes.
WhiteRoseEstate.com. As always, we're going out with 30 seconds of craziness, so enjoy. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Consumed by hypocrisy, surrounded by idiocy. For every idiosyncrasy, I'll tighten my lips even more. I don't wanna be living, I don't wanna be dead. I'll contradict myself until the end. I don't wanna be living, I don't wanna be dead. I'll contradict myself until the